Marvel's bringing Endgame back, but this time we're getting new scenes. Reports say Avengers Endgame Encore will add around 9 to 10 minutes of new footage, a custom intro, and even a post-credit scene. And that new footage could finally explain how Endgame connects directly to Avengers Doomsday. So let's get into the biggest reveal. This new intel comes from the leaker No More Mutants, and it reportedly reveals both the new scenes and the movie's new ending. First, Steve gets new scenes with Pepper and Scott at Tony's funeral. That actually makes sense. Tony and Steve butted heads plenty of times, but by the end, they respected each other completely. Tony already left Morgan a hologram message, so it's not crazy to think he could have left one for Steve too. Steve also talks with Scott, and this one could be important for Doomsday. Scott already has a major connection to the multiverse through the quantum realm, and he was directly involved with Kang back in Quantumania. Someone even asked No More Mutants if Doom gets mentioned in these scenes, and the answer was simply only Kang. So apparently Kang hasn't been completely erased from the story. That could mean Endgame Encore and Doomsday both reference what happened to the Kangs, possibly with Dr. Doom revealing that he's already dealt with them. And if Scott knows what happened with Kang in the multiverse, he could be the one who gives the Avengers that information. Then there's Steve and Thor. We already saw Thor's reaction to Steve returning in the Doomsday trailer, but this could be where we finally get their full reunion. Steve may even run into Thor while returning Mjolnir and the Infinity Stones. And honestly, that brother-to-brother conversation could be one of the best additions to this re-release. But here's where things get seriously wild. The leak says Loki visits Steve and Peggy at their house and reveals that the Avengers didn't simply travel into their own past during Endgame. They crossed into another universe. If that's true, then the multiverse problem didn't start with Steve staying behind. It started when the Avengers first messed with time, and that could be the reason Doomsday is about to deal with massive incursions. The leak even describes a universe where Infinity War never happened because Thanos died before it could, Gamora disappeared, and Nebula died too. Whether we actually see that universe in Endgame Encore or it's just an example, that's a pretty insane detail. As for Steve, the leak says he ended up in a timeline extremely similar to Earth 616. That's where Steve and Peggy have a son named James, who we've already seen glimpses of in the Doomsday teasers. And yes, he's apparently named after Bucky, whose real name is James. Then comes the biggest part of Steve's ending. Endgame Encore reportedly ends with Steve, Peggy, and James living in a futuristic universe far away from the city, and that universe is supposedly the Fantastic Four's reality. The reason? Their original timeline was apparently supposed to be pruned by the TVA, so Loki moved them somewhere safe. And when Loki sends Steve there, he supposedly gives Steve a TVA card. That lines up with the Doomsday trailer where Steve is holding that exact card while Loki appears inside his house. So that card could be Steve's way of contacting Loki and the TVA. And if that's true, we could get a scene in Doomsday where Steve tells Thor that Loki is still alive. Steve could then bring Thor to Loki, and we finally get the Thor and Loki reunion we've been waiting for. But there's a problem. Some theories say that Loki handing Steve the TVA card might actually be the post-credit scene for Endgame Encore, not Doomsday. And that raises a huge question. How do Steve and Thor actually reach Loki if he's still sitting on the multiversal throne? Then there's the darker leak. Dr. Doom supposedly kills Loki after stealing his TVA powers, leaving Steve and Thor to find him too late. Thor then goes after Doom for revenge, and Doom beats him. That could explain the trailer moment where Thor struggles to hold back Stormbreaker. Personally, I really hope that isn't how it plays out, because if Marvel actually gives us a proper Thor and Loki reunion first, that moment is going to hit completely differently. Most of these leaks sound pretty convincing, except for the claim that the Avengers crossed into another universe instead of simply traveling through their own past. But even that connects to something Tony said in Endgame. When you mess with time, time tends to mess back. And if that line is being brought back in the Endgame Encore footage, Marvel may be using it as a direct setup for everything that goes wrong in Doomsday. So if all of this is real, Endgame Encore isn't just giving us deleted footage, it's potentially adding the missing pieces between Endgame and Doomsday.